Millionaire CEO rescued blind girl in snowstorm, but she says 3 words that break his heart. Before we dive into this heart-wrenching story of courage and redemption, drop a comment below and tell us where you're watching from. You're about to witness how one stormy night changed 2 lives forever. Enjoy the story. The blizzard hit Boston like God's own fury on Christmas Eve 2024, turning the city into a frozen wasteland where even seasoned New Englanders feared to venture. Wind howled through downtown streets at 60 miles per hour, transforming snowflakes into razor-sharp missiles that cut through any exposed skin. Marcus Bennett pulled his Mercedes to a crawl on Boylston Street, squinting through windshield wipers that fought a losing battle against nature's assault. At 38, the tech CEO had weathered countless New England storms, but this one felt different, apocalyptic, almost biblical in its intensity. That's when he saw her, a tiny figure huddled in a bus shelter, so small she might have been a discarded bundle of rags if not for the occasional tremor that shook her entire frame. Marcus slammed his brakes, his heart lurching as he realized what he was witnessing: a child. Alone in this deadly storm, he abandoned his car in the middle of the street and ran toward the shelter, his expensive Italian shoes slipping on ice. As he drew closer, details emerged that made his blood run cold. The little girl wore only a thin spring jacket over what appeared to be summer clothes. Her feet, clad in worn canvas sneakers, had turned an alarming shade of blue. "Sweetheart," Marcus called softly, not wanting to startle her. She lifted her head, and Marcus felt his world shift. Her eyes, though beautiful, held no focus. They gazed past him into some middle distance only she could see. Beside her sat a white cane, its red tip barely visible beneath gathering snow. "Mummy died and I couldn't see her," she whispered, tears freezing on her cheeks. "They said I couldn't go because I'm different." The words hit Marcus like a physical blow. This blind child, no more than 8 or 9 years old, had been abandoned in a killer storm by people who should have protected her. "What's your name, honey?" he asked, kneeling despite the icy ground soaking through his suit pants. "Lily Chen. Uncle Robert and Aunt Diana brought me here 3 hours ago. They said they'd come back." But her voice trailed off as another violent gust shook the shelter. Marcus didn't hesitate. "Come with me, Lily. My car is warm, and we'll figure this out together." As he lifted her nearly frozen form, she whispered something that would haunt him forever. "Please don't leave me too. Everyone always leaves." The emergency room at Boston General Hospital buzzed with controlled chaos as Marcus carried Lily through automatic doors that seemed to exhale warmth into the frigid night. Her small body had stopped shivering 20 minutes ago, a terrifying sign that sent ice through his veins. "I need help," Marcus called out, his voice cutting through the typical ear din of beeping machines and urgent conversations. Dr. Amanda Rodriguez, a seasoned pediatric emergency physician, took one look at Lily's blue-tinged lips and motioned toward Trauma Bay 3. "How long was she exposed?" she asked, her hands already working to remove Lily's inadequate clothing. "At least 3 hours in the storm," Marcus replied, watching as medical staff swarmed around the small figure. "She's blind, and whoever was supposed to care for her just left her there." Lily's eyes tracked toward Marcus's voice with laser precision despite her sightless gaze. "Don't let them take me away," she pleaded, her small hand reaching desperately for his. "The white coats remind me of when Mummy died 3 weeks ago." Dr. Rodriguez paused in her examination. 3 weeks? Who's been caring for you since then, sweetheart?" "Uncle Robert and Aunt Diana Walsh," Lily whispered, then added with heartbreaking clarity, "But they're not really my uncle and aunt. They run the Bright Future Foundation for kids like me. They said blind girls don't belong at funerals, that I would just get in the way." Marcus felt rage building in his chest like a living thing. The Walsh Foundation, he'd heard of them, seen their glossy fundraising materials featuring disadvantaged children with disabilities. "Lily," Dr. Rodriguez said gently, while checking her core temperature, "can you tell us more about the Walshes?" The child's expression grew distant, as if she were listening to sounds only she could hear. "I have really good hearing because I can't see. I heard them talking to men with strange accents about clean funds and accounts on islands far away. They always whispered about how the blind kid was perfect, because nobody would suspect anything." Dr. Rodriguez exchanged a meaningful glance with Marcus. "Boo. We need to contact Child Protective Services immediately." "No!" Lily's scream pierced the air. "Please, Mr. Marcus, that's your name, right? I can tell by your voice that you're kind. Don't let me go back there. They don't want me to tell anyone what I heard through the heating vents." As if summoned by dark magic, Marcus's phone buzzed. A text from an unknown number. "We know you have our ward. Return her immediately, or face serious legal consequences." R. Walsh, the timestamp showed they'd reported Lily missing only 30 minutes ago, nearly 2.5 hours after abandoning her in a deadly blizzard. Marcus's Back Bay penthouse had never felt so purposeful as it did during those first 3 days with Lily. The sprawling space, once a monument to his corporate success, transformed into something resembling an actual home as he watched this remarkable child navigate her new world through touch and sound. "The kitchen island is 12 steps from the couch," Lily announced on her second morning, her small fingers trailing along the granite countertop. "And the piano, yes, I can hear it even when it's not playing," is 17 steps from the front door. Marcus marveled at her systematic approach to memorizing his apartment's layout. He'd already ordered every adaptive device Amazon offered: talking clocks, braille labels, textured markers for the stove settings. But Lily seemed most fascinated by sounds he'd never consciously noticed: the hum of the refrigerator, the whisper of heated air through vents, the distant rumble of the T passing beneath Boylston Street. "Your voice gets softer when you're worried about me," she observed while they shared breakfast on day 3, "just like Mummy's did when she got sick." The casual mention of her mother made Marcus's chest tighten. "Can you tell me about her, Lily?" For the first time since the storm, genuine joy flickered across her features. "Mummy taught me to see with my heart instead of my eyes. She said God gave me super hearing to make up for not seeing colors and faces. Before she got the cancer, we would sit at her old keyboard, and she'd play songs while I made up words." Marcus had noticed Lily lingering near his rarely used Steinway grand piano, her fingers occasionally brushing the keys as if greeting an old friend. On impulse, he'd ordered a specialized keyboard with braille markings and audio feedback. When it arrived that afternoon, Lily's reaction stunned him. She sat at the bench and began playing a hauntingly beautiful melody, her small hands moving across keys with impossible confidence. "How did you?" Marcus began. "Music lives in my ears, the same way colors live in your eyes," she explained simply. "I can hear the songs that want to come out." As her melody filled the apartment, Marcus felt something shift inside him. His life of endless meetings, profit margins, and corporate acquisitions suddenly seemed hollow compared to this moment. Watching a brave little girl transform pain into beauty through pure instinct. "Mummy always said I was her special gift," Lily murmured as the last notes faded. "But I think maybe you're mine too, Mr. Marcus." For the first time in years, Marcus Bennett understood what it meant to be truly needed by another human being. James Patterson had been Marcus's attorney for 8 years, but he'd never heard such urgency in his client's voice as when he called requesting an immediate investigation into the Bright Future Foundation. What James discovered over the next 48 hours would shake his faith in humanity. "Marcus, this is worse than we imagined," James said, spreading documents across the conference table in his downtown office. "The foundation has received $8.2 million in donations over the past 2 years, but only 3% can be documented as actually reaching children." Lily sat quietly beside Marcus, her enhanced hearing catching every rustle of paper, every subtle change in James's breathing pattern that indicated stress. She'd insisted on attending this meeting, claiming she needed to help the grown-ups understand what I heard. "Tell him about the Tuesday phone calls, Lily," Marcus encouraged gently. Her voice took on an eerie precision, as if she were replaying a recording. "Every Tuesday at exactly 10 o'clock in the morning, Uncle Robert would lock himself in the basement office and make calls. He talked about Caribbean transfers and asset cleaning, with people who had different accents. Some sounded like the man who delivered our groceries, others talked fast, like people on TV from New York." James leaned forward, fascinated despite the horror of the situation. "Can you remember specific phrases, sweetheart?" Lily's brow furrowed in concentration. "He always said the package needs washing before it reaches the island account. And once I heard him laugh and say nobody suspects a charity for blind kids. It's the perfect front." The attorney's face paled. "Marcus, there's more. I've identified at least 6 different men who visited the Waltz house regularly, based on Lily's descriptions of their voices and breathing patterns. 2 of them are on Interpol's watch list for international money laundering. Marcus felt his protective instincts surge as Lily unconsciously moved closer to him in her chair. What about getting her into witness protection? That's complicated, James admitted. Dr. Rodriguez called this morning. The Walshes have hired Harrison Collier, the lawyer who represented those pharmaceutical executives last year. He's filing papers claiming Lily needs institutional care for severe developmental disabilities, requiring specialized intervention. Lily's sharp intake of breath cut through the room like a blade. They always called me their little investment when they thought I was sleeping, she whispered. Diana would tell visitors I was perfect for the image, a poor blind orphan who made rich people feel good about donating money. The pieces clicked into place with sickening clarity. Lily hadn't just been an adopted child, she'd been human advertising. A living, breathing sympathy tool designed to open wealthy hearts and wallets. They're not trying to get custody back because they care, Marcus realized aloud. They need to silence her before she can testify about what she overheard. Detective Lisa Torres of the FBI Financial Crimes Unit arrived at Marcus's apartment on a gray January morning that seemed to match the gravity of her news. Her badge carried weight. That made even seasoned attorneys like James Patterson straighten unconsciously in their chairs. Mr. Bennett, we've been investigating the Bright Future Foundation for 6 months, she began, her voice carrying the measured tone of someone accustomed to delivering life-altering information. What we didn't expect was to find a witness whose testimony could unravel an international money laundering network spanning 12 countries. Lily sat perfectly still on the couch, her head tilted in that distinctive way that meant she was processing every nuance of Detective Torres's voice. You sound tired, she observed quietly, like you haven't slept much because you're worried about keeping people safe. Torres smiled, despite the circumstances. You're right, sweetheart, and you're one of those people I'm trying to keep safe. James cleared his throat. Detective, my private investigator found something disturbing about Sarah Chun's death. The accident report has inconsistencies that Sarah Chen didn't die in an accident. Torres interrupted bluntly. She was murdered after discovering $2.3 million in discrepancies while auditing the foundation's books. She'd been their accountant for 2 years before she started asking uncomfortable questions. The temperature in the room seemed to drop 10 degrees. Marcus reached for Lily's hand as her small body began to tremble. But here's what makes this case extraordinary, Torres continued. The night before Sarah died, she did something remarkable. Lily, do you remember the special song your mother taught you? Lily's face brightened, despite her tears. Mummy said it was our secret song with numbers. She made me practice it until I could sing it perfectly, even when I was scared or sad. That wasn't just a song, honey, Torres said gently. Your mother discovered the account numbers for 12 offshore banks where the stolen money was being hidden. She knew she was in danger. So she memorized the codes and taught them to you disguised as a melody. Marcus felt the world tilt. You're saying Lily has been carrying evidence in her memory for months. $15 million worth of evidence, Torres confirmed. Her eidetic auditory memory means she can recite every number, every conversation, every detail exactly as it happened. The Walshes don't just want custody back, they need to eliminate the only person who can lead us to their entire network. Lily's voice emerged as barely more than a whisper. Mummy died protecting other children, didn't she? Torres nodded solemnly. She died making sure the bad people couldn't hurt any more kids. And now you're going to help us finish what she started. Agent Sarah Kim arrived with the dawn on January 20th, transforming Marcus's penthouse into a fortress. Within hours, the witness protection specialist moved with military precision, installing encrypted communication systems and motion sensors that turned every shadow into potential intelligence. 8 agents will rotate in 12-hour shifts, Agent Kim explained as technicians mounted nearly invisible cameras throughout the apartment. Lily, I need you to listen to each agent's voice and breathing pattern so you can identify friend from foe instantly. Lily stood in the center of the living room like a small general reviewing her troops, her head moving systematically as each agent introduced themselves. Agent Rodriguez breathed through his nose with a slight whistle, she announced after meeting the team. Agent Thompson has a southern accent he tries to hide, and Agent Walsh, she paused, her face clouding. Why does he have the same last name as the bad people? Different family entirely, sweetheart, Agent Kim assured her. But your ability to catch details like that is exactly why we need your help. During sessions with child psychologist Dr. Monica Foster, Lily began reconstructing the Walsh house using modeling clay, her fingers working with startling precision to recreate spaces she'd only known through sound and touch. There was a secret room in the basement, she explained, molding tiny clay figures around a miniature table. Every Thursday night, Diana would lock me in my bedroom and play music, really loud, but I could still hear voices through the heating ducts. Important men from different countries. I counted at least 7 distinct accents. Dr. Foster documented each detail as Lily continued building. One man always arrived exactly at 8:30 and left at 11:15. He spoke English but thought in Spanish. I could tell, because he'd count under his breath in Spanish when Uncle Robert showed him papers. Agent Kim studied the clay model with growing excitement. Lily, this basement room, did you ever hear them mention specific dates or times? Every meeting followed the same pattern, Lily replied, her voice taking on that eerie recording-like quality. First they'd discuss shipping schedules for the 15th of each month. Then they'd talk about cargo inspection at something called Port 7. And always at the end, Uncle Robert would say the special child remains our best protection. The realization hit Marcus like a physical blow. They were using her as insurance. Who would suspect a charity for blind children of running an international crime syndicate? Agent Kim's phone buzzed with an encrypted message. Her expression darkened as she read. 7 witnesses connected to this case have died in accidents over the past 18 months. Lily isn't just our key witness, she's their primary target. That evening, as Lily played a haunting composition on her new piano, Marcus realized the melody perfectly captured their situation. Beautiful, complex, and shadowed by an undercurrent of danger that could strike at any moment. The final weeks of January 2025 brought something Marcus had never expected to find in his regimented corporate life: genuine peace. Despite the federal agents stationed throughout his penthouse and the constant threat lurking beyond bulletproof windows, these quiet moments with Lily felt like the most natural thing in the world. Your coffee maker sounds different when you're happy, Lily observed from her seat at the kitchen island, where she'd been practicing Braille reading with materials provided by the Boston school system. It gurgles more cheerfully, like it's singing along with your mood. Marcus paused in his morning routine, marveling at how this remarkable child had taught him to notice details he'd ignored for 38 years. What else can you hear that I miss? Lily tilted her head with that familiar listening expression. Agent Kim's footsteps are lighter today. She got good news about something. The heating system clicks exactly 17 times before it fully starts, and she paused, a smile spreading across her face. You hum when you think I'm not paying attention. I do not hum, Marcus protested, though he suspected she was right. You hummed Chopin's Nocturne in E-flat major while making breakfast yesterday, Lily said matter-of-factly. Mummy used to play that piece when she was feeling hopeful about something. These casual mentions of her mother no longer brought tears. Instead, they seemed to connect past and present like musical notes forming a melody. Lily had begun composing what she called her journey song on the piano, a 12-minute piece that told her story through sound. The first 4 minutes are dark and heavy, she explained during one of their evening sessions. That's life with the Walshes. Then 2 minutes of chaos, the storm, and meeting you. The last 6 minutes get progressively brighter because you taught me that there's beautiful music in the world beyond sadness. Agent Kim had approved carefully supervised outings to Boston Common, where Lily experienced freedoms that had been denied her entire life. She touched tree bark with wonder, listened to pigeons with scientific fascination, and felt wind on her face without fear, for the first time anyone could remember. Is this what other children feel like every day? She asked during one afternoon walk, her face turned toward winter sunlight filtering through bare branches. The lucky ones, Marcus replied, watching her discover simple joys that most people took for granted. Local media had caught wind of their story, with headlines like Tech CEO Saves Blind Girl in Christmas Storm appearing in the Globe and Herald. The attention made Agent Kim nervous, but Lily seemed to understand instinctively that their growing bond represented something worth protecting. We're a real family now, aren't we? She asked that evening as Marcus tucked her into bed. The realest family I've ever had, he replied, meaning every word. Victoria Sterling appeared at Marcus's door on February 5th, like an elegant ghost from his carefully buried past. At 36, she remained as striking as ever, platinum blonde, hair swept into a perfect chignon designer suit that probably cost more than most people's monthly rent. and that confident smile that had once made his heart skip beats. "Marcus," she said, her voice carrying the warm authority that had made her one of Chicago's most successful family law attorneys. "I saw the news coverage and couldn't stay away. You know I've always cared about you." They'd dated seriously for 2 years, 2019 to 2021 before. Her promotion to senior partner had taken her to Chicago. The breakup had been amicable, even friendly, but seeing her now felt like opening a door he'd deliberately closed. Lily's reaction was immediate and unsettling. The moment Victoria spoke, the child's entire body tensed, her head turning toward the voice with laser focus. "She wears expensive perfume like Diana wore during important meetings," Lily whispered to Marcus when Victoria stepped onto the balcony to take a phone call. "Chanel No. 5, and her breathing has the same pattern as people who live shallow and calculated." Marcus frowned. "Lily, that's not fair. Victoria and I have history, but she's a good person. Her voice has 2 different melodies," Lily insisted quietly. "The top one is sweet like honey, but underneath it's mechanical, like she's reading from a script." Victoria returned with an armload of expensive Swiss chocolates for Lily, who accepted them politely, but Marcus noticed she didn't eat any. Throughout the visit, Victoria asked detailed questions about their security arrangements, their daily routines, and the legal proceedings, under the guise of professional concern. "Darling, I specialize in custody cases involving children with special needs," Victoria explained, settling gracefully onto Marcus's couch. "The Walshes have significant legal resources, and you need representation that understands the complexities of disability law." She presented credentials that were undeniably impressive. Successful cases, glowing testimonials, expertise in exactly the areas Marcus needed most. Her offer to represent him pro bono seemed almost too generous. "I care about what happens to both of you," Victoria continued, her green eyes meeting his with apparent sincerity. "Let me help you navigate this properly." After she left, Lily sat at her piano and played a discordant melody that made Marcus's skin crawl. "What was that?" he asked. "That was the sound of her real voice," Lily replied, "the one she hides underneath all the pretty words." Despite his growing unease, Marcus found himself agreeing to let Victoria review their legal documents. After all, what could it hurt to have expert advice from someone who claimed to care about their welfare? Victoria's visits became a regular occurrence throughout February, each one chipping away at Marcus's confidence like water eroding stone. She arrived with academic studies, expert opinions, and carefully constructed arguments that made his protective instincts seem suddenly selfish. "Marcus, darling, you have to understand the developmental complexities," Victoria said during one particularly intense conversation, spreading glossy brochures across his dining table. "Children with congenital blindness need specialized environments with peers who share similar experiences." The materials she brought were undeniably impressive. Perkins School for the Blind, Hadley Institute programs, testimonials from families whose children had flourished in residential settings designed specifically for visually impaired youth. "Have you considered whether you're unconsciously limiting Lily's potential by keeping her in a world designed exclusively for sighted people?" Victoria asked, her voice carrying that professional authority that made questioning her feel almost cruel. Marcus found himself wavering despite every instinct screaming otherwise. The studies showed clear benefits: increased independence, peer socialization, specialized educational techniques that he couldn't possibly provide in his penthouse. "Lily needs to learn real independence," Victoria continued, introducing new concerns about emotional dependency. "Your protective instincts, while admirable, might actually be hindering her psychological development." She brought experts who validated her concerns: Dr. Robert Hayes from Harvard Medical School, who spoke eloquently about the dangers of well-meaning but untrained caregivers; parents who shared stories of making the difficult but necessary decision to place their special needs children in residential programs. "It was emotionally devastating initially," admitted Jennifer Morrison during a dinner Victoria had arranged. "But now our son is thriving beyond our wildest expectations. He has confidence and skills we never could have taught him." Marcus watched Lily growing quieter during these conversations, spending increasing hours alone at her piano creating melodies that grew progressively more melancholic. Her compositions began reflecting themes of abandonment and loss that broke his heart. "Marcus, are you sad with me?" She asked one evening after Victoria's latest visit. "Your breathing changed since Miss Victoria started coming more often. It sounds like you're preparing to say goodbye." The question hit him like a physical blow. "Lily, I could never be sad with you." "But you're sad about me," she replied with devastating accuracy. "You think I need more than you can give me." When he asked directly if she was happy, Lily's response nearly destroyed him. "I'm happy when you're happy, Marcus. But you're not happy anymore, since you decided I need to go somewhere else." Victoria's logic seemed unassailable, but something fundamental felt wrong about pushing a traumatized child toward yet another major transition. The war between his intellect and his instincts was tearing him apart. Victoria escalated her psychological campaign during the first week of March by bringing in what appeared to be an arsenal of credentialed professionals, each one reinforcing her arguments with scientific precision that made resistance seem almost irrational. Dr. Robert Hayes arrived with an impressive leather briefcase and Harvard credentials that commanded immediate respect. His assessment of Marcus felt both compassionate and devastating. "Mr. Bennett, your heart is absolutely in the right place," Dr. Hayes said, his voice carrying the warm authority of someone accustomed to delivering difficult truths. "But unconditional love, however genuine, cannot substitute for specialized expertise in visual impairment education." The doctor presented charts showing developmental milestones that Lily was missing, social skills that required interaction with similarly challenged peers, and independence benchmarks that residential programs achieved far more effectively than individual care. "You may be unconsciously projecting your own emotional needs for fatherhood onto Lily," Dr. Hayes continued gently. "This projection, while natural, could potentially hinder her optimal development." Victoria orchestrated a dinner where Marcus met 3 other parents who had made what they called the hardest but most necessary decision of their lives. Paul and Jennifer Morrison spoke with evangelical fervor about their son's transformation. "After entering a specialized residential program, we were just like you," Jennifer said, her eyes bright with conviction, "absolutely convinced that our love was enough. But watching David develop real confidence, true independence, we realized we'd been holding him back out of our own fear of letting go." Their stories followed identical patterns: initial devastation, gradual acceptance, ultimate celebration of their children's remarkable progress in structured environments designed specifically for their needs. Marcus found himself nodding along, despite every instinct screaming otherwise. The logic was impeccable, the credentials unassailable, the success stories undeniably compelling. Meanwhile, Lily retreated further into herself, her piano compositions becoming increasingly complex, but darker in tone. She spent hours creating melodies that sounded like goodbye songs, her small fingers working out emotions too sophisticated for an 8-year-old to bear. "The music is telling me you're preparing to let me go," she said during one of their evening sessions, her sightless eyes filled with unshed tears. "I can hear it in how you breathe when Victoria talks about schools." "Lily, I only want what's best for you," Marcus replied, the words feeling hollow even as he spoke them. "What's best for me is staying with the first person who ever made me feel safe," she whispered. "But if you think I need to leave, then maybe I do." Her resigned acceptance felt worse than anger would have. Victoria's campaign was working perfectly, methodically dismantling every emotional argument, while presenting seemingly irrefutable professional expertise. Marcus found himself trapped in an agonizing internal war during mid-March, torn between Victoria's seemingly logical arguments and every paternal instinct that screamed danger. Her case made intellectual sense. Lily didn't need specialized education, peer interaction with similarly challenged children, and development of independence appropriate for her age and abilities. But something felt fundamentally wrong about forcing more transitions on a child who had already endured so much trauma and abandonment. "The paperwork for Hartwell Academy is ready for your signature," Victoria announced during her March 18th visit, producing official-looking documents with the school's letterhead. "We can arrange a gradual transition weekend visits initially, then building toward full residential placement as Lily develops natural independence." The brochures showed a picturesque campus in New Hampshire's White Mountains, with specialized facilities designed specifically for blind children. Faculty credentials were impressive, success stories compelling, and the gradual transition plan seemed designed to minimize emotional trauma. Lily had begun having recurring nightmares, waking at 3 a.m. to ask the same heartbreaking question: "Marcus, Are you going to leave me like all the other adults left children who heard too much? Sweetheart, no one is leaving anyone, Marcus would reply, but even he could hear the uncertainty in his voice. During Victoria's visit, Lily discreetly pulled Marcus into the kitchen while Victoria examined security protocols with suspicious thoroughness. She asked specific questions about Agent Kim yesterday. Lily whispered urgently, when she visits, what type of information she shares with us, how our security systems work. Those are questions that only dangerous people ask. Marcus initially dismissed this as paranoia from a child with abandonment trauma. Victoria's questions seemed professionally reasonably an attorney understanding her client's protection status. Lily, Victoria is trying to help us navigate complex legal issues, he explained gently. Her heartbeat changes when she talks about the school. Lily insisted, it speeds up like people's do when they're excited about something secret. And yesterday, when she thought I was playing piano and not listening, she made a phone call where she used the same voice patterns as Uncle Robert when he was planning bad things. Agent Kim expressed surprise when Marcus mentioned considering changes to their living arrangements, but legally couldn't intervene without concrete evidence of danger. Victoria's presentations grew more persuasive with each visit. She brought testimonials from parents whose children had thrived in residential settings, academic studies proving the benefits of specialized educational environments, and compelling arguments about Lily's need for age-appropriate independence. Marcus, if you truly love that child, you'll give her the opportunities she deserves, rather than keeping her isolated out of your own emotional needs, Victoria said with devastating gentleness. The words cut deep because they contained enough truth to make resistance seem selfish. Maybe he was holding Lily back. Maybe his protective instincts were actually harmful to her development. But late at night, watching Lily compose increasingly mournful melodies, Marcus couldn't shake the feeling that something was terribly, dangerously wrong. James Patterson's private investigator delivered the devastating truth on March 25, 2025. With documents that shattered Marcus's world like glass hitting concrete. The manila folder contained financial records, phone transcripts, and photographic evidence that revealed Victoria's elegant deception in horrifying detail. Marcus, sit down before you read this, James said grimly, spreading the evidence across his conference table. Victoria's law firm Sterling & Associates received 3 payments totaling $127,000 since January from shell companies we've traced back to the same international criminal network that funded the Walsh Foundation. The payments had begun exactly 3 days before Victoria reappeared in Marcus's life, precise timing that eliminated any possibility of coincidence. Phone records obtained through James's telecommunications contacts revealed encrypted communications between Victoria's personal cell and numbers later identified as belonging to operatives under active federal surveillance. It gets worse, James continued, his voice heavy with disgust. Our surveillance specialist recorded a phone conversation Victoria made from your balcony last night at 11:30 p.m. She assumed you were asleep. The transcript made Marcus's blood turn to ice. The blind girl needs to disappear permanently before April 15th, when she's scheduled to testify before the grand jury. The plan is to transfer her to Hartwell as agreed, then stage a fatal transportation accident during the transfer, make it look like a weather-related car crash. New Hampshire mountain roads are perfect for that kind of incident. Marcus felt physically sick as the full scope of Victoria's manipulation became clear. Every expert she'd brought, every study she'd cited, every emotional argument about Lily's best interests, Saul carefully orchestrated lies, designed to convince him to voluntarily deliver the child to her execution. Hartwell Academy doesn't actually exist, James revealed, showing corporate registration documents. It's a front operation with a professional website, but no physical address, no real faculty, no actual students. Victoria created the entire school specifically to fool you into signing custody transfer papers. The child psychologist, the Harvard expert, the testimonial parents, all actors paid to perform elaborate deceptions that played on Marcus's deepest insecurities about his qualifications as a caregiver. She wasn't helping Lily develop independence. Marcus realized with growing horror. She was systematically coordinating Lily's murder while manipulating me emotionally to deliver her personally to the killers. Lily's instincts had been absolutely correct from the first moment Victoria spoke. Her enhanced hearing had detected deception that Marcus's emotions had blinded him too completely. "We need to contact Agent Kim immediately," James said. Reaching for his secure phone, "Victoria's people will move fast once they realize we know the truth." As if summoned by their conversation, Marcus's phone buzzed with a text from Victoria. "Darling, I'm coming over tonight to finalize the Hartwell arrangements. Have the custody papers ready for signature. It's time to do what's best for everyone involved." The message felt like a death threat wrapped in silk. The confrontation came at 8:47 p.m. on March 28, 2025, in Marcus's penthouse living room that had been transformed into an FBI surveillance center. Agent Kim crouched behind the kitchen island, with recording equipment, while Marcus wore a nearly invisible wire that would capture every word of Victoria's confession. Victoria arrived, carrying an expensive bottle of champagne and wearing the radiant smile of someone anticipating victory. She moved through the apartment with practiced elegance, but Marcus now recognized the predatory calculation behind her graceful movements. "Darling, I brought Dom Perignon to celebrate Lily's new beginning," she announced, setting the bottle on his granite countertop. "Where is the little angel? I want to say goodbye properly before her big transition tomorrow." "Lily's with Dr. Foster tonight," Marcus lied smoothly. "Child psychology session to prepare her for the move." Victoria's smile flickered, almost imperceptibly, the first crack in her perfect facade. "Of course, these transitions require careful emotional preparation." Marcus had rehearsed this moment, but facing the woman who had nearly convinced him to deliver an innocent child to her death still made his hands shake with rage. "Victoria, before we sign anything, I need to understand something. How long have you been working with the people who want Lily dead?" Her composure shattered like crystal hitting marble. The champagne smile vanished, replaced by cold calculation that transformed her beautiful features into something almost reptilian. "Marcus, you don't understand the international stakes involved here," she said, her voice losing all pretense of warmth. "That child can single-handedly destroy a $50 million money laundering operation that serves legitimate business people from 12 countries. Her photographic auditory memory will ruin hundreds of innocent families connected to the network." The admission poured out of her like poison from a broken container. The Walsh Foundation had been merely a small regional branch of a massive international criminal enterprise laundering money for cartels, corrupt politicians, and weapons dealers spanning multiple continents. Lily isn't just a witness, she's a walking encyclopedia who can recite banking codes, dates, names, amounts, and conversations that will send 47 people to federal prison for life. Victoria continued, her professional mask completely abandoned. "You cannot protect her indefinitely, Marcus. They have international resources you cannot begin to imagine." "And what about you?" Marcus asked, his voice steady despite the fury building in his chest. "What did they pay you to betray a child who trusted me?" Victoria's laugh held no humor. $127,000 up front, plus promises of $500,000 completion bonus and future partnership in a legitimate firm. "I genuinely loved you during our relationship, Marcus, but you are always too idealistically naive. This child represents a liability that requires permanent resolution to protect innocent people." Agent Kim's tactical team was already in position throughout the building, but Victoria had come prepared. Through the window, Marcus could see operatives positioned on rooftops across the street, her backup plan in case persuasion failed. "You have 30 seconds to bring me that child," Victoria said, producing a small pistol from her designer purse, "or my associates will come up here and collect her themselves." Victoria's backup team moved with military precision, reaching Marcus's building within 4 minutes faster than Agent Kim's federal response team could navigate through Boston's congested evening traffic. The sound of tactical boots echoing in the stairwell sent ice through Marcus's veins as he realized how thoroughly Victoria had planned this final gambit. "Emergency protocol, now," Agent Kim shouted into her radio, while simultaneously grabbing Lily from the safe room where she'd been hidden during the confrontation. The child remained remarkably composed, despite the chaos erupting around them, her enhanced hearing providing a tactical advantage that even trained agents couldn't match. 6 men in the stairwell, moving up from the 20th floor. Lily reported with startling calm, her head tilted toward sounds only she could detect. "Their breathing patterns are controlled, they're professionals, not panicked." "But Agent, Rodriguez is 3 floors below them, and Agent Thompson is coming up the service elevator. Marcus lifted Lily in his arms. Following Agent Kim toward the building's emergency exit as gunfire erupted in the hallway behind them. Victoria's voice cut through the chaos with desperate fury. Marcus, if you genuinely love that child, you'll surrender her now to trained professionals. Running will only delay the inevitable and subject her to more psychological trauma. If I genuinely love her, I'll never stop protecting her from people who view children as expendable problems. Marcus shouted back while carrying Lily down the emergency stairs, her small arms wrapped tightly around his neck. They reached the underground parking garage as sirens wailed throughout. Back Bay and Agent Kim's armored extraction vehicle came into view, but Victoria's operatives had anticipated this escape. Root-armed figures emerged from behind concrete pillars, their weapons trained on the small group racing toward safety. Victoria appeared at the garage entrance, blood seeping through her designer blouse from a wound sustained in the tactical firefight upstairs. Her perfect composure had completely crumbled, replaced by desperate calculation of someone whose carefully orchestrated plan was disintegrating in real time. "This ends now," she screamed, raising her weapon with trembling hands as federal agents poured into the garage from multiple entry points. "That child dies tonight, or hundreds of innocent people spend their lives in prison." In the chaos of converging tactical teams, Boston PD units, and international criminal operatives exchanging gunfire throughout the concrete space, Victoria made a critical tactical error. She moved directly toward Lily, attempting to grab the child's arm in a last-ditch effort to complete her mission. Lily's response was immediate and perfectly executed. She screamed the specific FBI code word Agent Kim had taught her for extreme emergencies. "Lighthouse, lighthouse, lighthouse." The code word summoned immediate federal tactical backup while simultaneously identifying Lily's exact location to friendly forces. Victoria found herself surrounded by federal agents within seconds, her weapon trained on a child she could no longer reach. During the final exchange of gunfire, a ricocheting bullet struck Victoria in the shoulder, spinning her around and sending her weapon clattering across the concrete floor. As she collapsed against a concrete pillar, her eyes met Marcus's with something that might have been genuine regret cutting through the pain and fury. "I'm truly sorry it escalated to this violence, Marcus," she gasped, pressing her hand against the wound. "Take care of her. She deserves infinitely better than what any of us adults provided." As paramedics treated Victoria's wounds while federal agents secured the scene with systematic efficiency, Lily reached for Marcus's hand with the trust of a child who had never doubted his commitment to protecting her. "Are we finally safe now? Forever?" she asked, her voice barely audible above the sirens and radio chatter filling the garage. Marcus held her closer, his own voice thick with emotion and exhaustion. "We're going to be safe, baby girl. I promise on your mother's memory that no one will ever hurt you again." 18 months later, on a brilliantly clear September morning in 2026, Marcus stood at the podium of the newly constructed Sarah Chen Memorial Foundation for Children with Disabilities, watching sunlight stream through floor-to-ceiling windows onto an audience of 300 people who had gathered to witness something extraordinary. The converted historic building in Cambridge represented more than architectural stood as a testament to how tragedy could transform into hope when people refused to let evil triumph over innocence. Marcus had invested $12 million of his personal fortune into creating a comprehensive organization dedicated to protecting vulnerable children and supporting families navigating the complex world of special needs advocacy. "Ladies and gentlemen," Marcus began, his voice carrying easily through the acoustically perfect auditorium. "Today we celebrate not just the opening of a facility, but the triumph of a remarkable young woman who refused to let darkness extinguish her light." Lily Chun Bennett, legally adopted through finalized proceedings, completed in June 2026, sat at a pristine Steinway concert, grand piano positioned center stage. At 10 years old, she had grown into a poised, confident child whose blindness had become merely one aspect of her multifaceted personality rather than a defining limitation. She wore a deep blue velvet dress that brought out the glossy black of her hair, now styled in elegant waves that framed her face as she prepared to perform the 15-minute composition she had titled Finding Light Through Darkness. The piece represented her complete emotional journey from the trauma of abandonment, through the terror of persecution to the ultimate joy of finding safety and unconditional love. The opening notes emerged from the piano, like whispered memories, haunting and melancholic as Lily's small hands moved across keys with the confidence of someone who had found her truest form of communication. The first movement captured her life, with the waltzes discordant, oppressive, filled with fear and confusion, that made the audience shift uncomfortably in their seats. Agent Sarah Kim sat in the front row beside Dr. Amanda Rodriguez, both women wiping away tears as Lily's music told the story. They had helped right through their professional dedication and personal courage. Behind them, Detective Lisa Torres watched with the satisfaction of someone who had seen justice prevail against overwhelming odds. The composition's second movement erupted with the chaos of that Christmas Eve blizzard, crashing notes that depicted wind and snow and terror, followed by a gentle melody that represented Marcus's first appearance in her life. The musical narrative showed how one person's decision to stop and help could change the trajectory of multiple lives forever. Victoria Sterling, serving a reduced 7-year sentence in minimum security federal prison in exchange for testimony that had dismantled the entire 12-country criminal network, had sent a handwritten letter that morning. The correspondence, delivered through official channels, contained genuine remorse and detailed confessions about Sarah Chen's murder that had led to final convictions of 23 remaining network members internationally. Lily, the letter. Read in Victoria's careful script. I know I have no right to ask forgiveness for the harm I intended to cause you, but I want you to know that watching you transform tragedy into triumph has taught me more about courage than 36 years of my previous life ever did. Your mother would be incredibly proud of the young woman you've become and the lives you're touching through your foundation. As Lily's composition moved into its final movements, the music grew progressively brighter and more complex, incorporating themes of hope, growth, and the kind of love that heals rather than harms. Her performance demonstrated not just exceptional musical talent, but the emotional intelligence of someone who had processed profound trauma and emerged stronger rather than broken. Marcus watched from the wings as Lily concluded her performance. To thunderous applause from an audience that included federal officials, disability advocates, families whose children had already benefited from the Foundation's programs, and journalists documenting this remarkable story of resilience and redemption. But the most meaningful moment came when Lily rose from the piano bench and addressed the crowd directly, her voice clear and confident as she spoke without notes or preparation. My mama died protecting children she would never meet, Lily said, her sightless eyes somehow seeming to make contact with every person in the auditorium. She knew that bad people were using kids like me to hurt other families, and she chose to stop them even though it cost her everything. The silence in the room was absolute, as 300 people hung on every word from this remarkable child, who had survived horrors that would have destroyed many adults. For a long time, I was angry that I couldn't see her face one last time, couldn't tell her goodbye, couldn't even go to her funeral because people said blind girls don't belong in cemeteries. Lily continued, her voice growing stronger with each sentence. But now I understand that the best way to honor someone you love isn't by seeing their face, it's by continuing their work. She gestured toward the Foundation's educational center, where 6 younger blind children were learning adaptive piano techniques under the guidance of specialized instructors Lily had personally helped train. Every child who learns to make music in this building, every family who finds support when they feel lost and scared, every person who discovers that being different doesn't mean being broken, that's how we keep my mama's memory alive. Marcus felt his heart swell with pride as he watched Lily demonstrate the kind of wisdom and compassion that most people spent lifetimes trying to develop. She had transformed personal tragedy into public service, using her unique experiences to help others navigate similar challenges. The Foundation operated multiple programs: emergency shelter for children removed from dangerous situations, educational support for families dealing with visual impairments, music therapy programs that helped traumatized children process emotions, and a witness protection advocacy service that ensured vulnerable children received appropriate legal representation and psychological support. Dr. Monica Foster had joined the Foundation's staff as chief child psychologist, developing innovative therapy techniques that incorporated music and sensory experiences specifically designed for children. with visual impairments who had experienced trauma. Agent Kim visited monthly, having become an honorary aunt figure who taught Lily's self-defense techniques adapted for blind individuals, while also serving as a constant reminder that powerful adults could be trusted to protect, rather than exploit, vulnerable children. During the reception following Lily's performance, Marcus found himself standing beside the memorial wall dedicated to Sarah Chen, where her photograph was surrounded by testimonials from families whose lives had been touched by the foundation established in her honor. "She would be so proud," came a familiar voice behind him. Marcus turned to find Lily approaching, guided by her white cane, but moving with the confidence of someone completely comfortable in her environment. "I think about her every day," Marcus replied, placing his hand gently on Lily's shoulder. "But I also think about how she trusted me to take care of her most precious gift." Lily smiled, the expression transforming her entire face with radiant joy. "You didn't just take care of me, Marcus, you taught me that families aren't just about being born to the same people, they're about choosing to love each other no matter what." As the afternoon sun streamed through the foundation's windows, illuminating displays of artwork created by children with visual impairments and photographs documenting successful reunifications with safe family members, Marcus reflected on how profoundly his life had changed since that snowy Christmas Eve. His corporate success, while still meaningful, now served a higher purpose, funding programs that transformed individual tragedies into community healing. Every business decision was filtered through the question of how it might impact the foundation's ability to help vulnerable children. That evening, Marcus and Lily made their monthly pilgrimage to Mount Auburn Cemetery, where Sarah Chun's grave was marked by a simple granite headstone surrounded by flowers that visitors left regularly. Lily had composed a special melody specifically for these visits, a haunting piece that somehow managed to capture both grief and gratitude in the same musical phrases as she played her portable keyboard beside her mother's grave. The notes floating across the peaceful cemetery in the gathering dusk, Lily finally spoke the words she had been unable to say during those first traumatic weeks after Sarah's death. "Mama, I can finally see you," she whispered, her fingers continuing to move across the keys. "Not with my eyes, but with my heart. Just like you taught me. I see you in every child we help, every family we bring back together, every person who learns that being different makes them special instead of broken." Marcus stood quietly beside the grave, understanding that this moment represented the completion of a journey that had begun with a terrified child abandoned in a blizzard and culminated with a confident young woman who had transformed her trauma into a mission of healing for others. "I couldn't say goodbye before," Lily continued, her voice growing stronger as her music swelled around them, "but I can say hello forever. Hello to the part of you that lives in every note I play, every hand I hold, every time I help someone else find their way home." As the last notes of her composition faded into the evening air, Marcus realized that Lily's initial heartbroken words, "Mummy died and I couldn't see her," had transformed into something infinitely more powerful. The understanding that love transcends physical sight, that memory becomes eternal through service to others, and that the most profound way to honor someone's sacrifice is to ensure their death creates life and hope for future generations. The story that had begun with abandonment and terror had become one of redemption, family, and the unshakable truth that even in humanity's darkest moments, there are always people willing to choose love over indifference, protection over exploitation, and hope over despair, walking back toward their car under a canopy of stars that Lily couldn't see but could sense through the subtle changes in air temperature and sound patterns around them. Marcus knew that their journey together was just beginning. The foundation would grow, more children would find safety in healing, and Lily's remarkable spirit would continue touching lives in ways they couldn't yet imagine. But tonight, in the peaceful silence of a cemetery where a mother's love lived on through her daughter's music, they had found the closure that had eluded them for so long, not an ending, but a beginning disguised as goodbye. The end.